In what is already being described as the most emotionally charged and controversial lineup announcement in the entire history of the World Baseball Classic, manager Ibata has officially revealed his starting roster and batting order for Samurai Japan's critical match against Venezuela, and the decisions he has made have detonated like a bomb inside the team camp in Miami. 3 key players have been left out of the starting lineup in moves that nobody predicted and that have sent shockwaves through every corner of Japanese baseball. But it is what happened immediately after the announcement that has truly stunned the entire sports world. Kensuke Kondo, one of the most respected and beloved players in all of Japanese baseball, broke down in tears so overwhelming that he tore his own uniform in a raw and heartbreaking display of emotion. And then came the phone call that changed everything. Shohei Ohtani called manager Ibata directly and delivered 4 words that no manager ever wants to hear from his most important player. "I can't accept this. The Samurai Japan camp is in crisis. The Venezuela match is hours away, and the most dramatic lineup announcement in WBC history has just torn the heart of this team wide open. Today we are breaking down absolutely everything, who was left out and why, the shocking details of Kondo's emotional breakdown, what Otani said to Ibata on that phone call, and what all of this means for Samurai Japan's chances against one of the most dangerous teams in the entire tournament." For days leading up to the Venezuela match, speculation had been building inside and outside the Samurai Japan camp about how manager Ibata would configure his lineup for the most important game of the tournament so far. Venezuela represents a genuinely fearsome challenge, a roster packed with MLB talent, aggressive hitters, and the kind of high-pressure experience that separates elite teams from merely good ones. Everyone assumed that Ibata would go with his strongest possible lineup. Everyone assumed that Japan's most talented and experienced players would be given every opportunity to perform on the biggest stage. Everyone assumed that the decisions would be difficult but ultimately logical, reflecting the tactical intelligence and careful preparation that Ibata has demonstrated throughout the tournament. Nobody assumed this. When Ibata gathered the entire Samurai Japan squad and coaching staff for the official lineup announcement, the atmosphere in the room was one of focused anticipation. Players sat with the kind of concentrated attention that comes from knowing that the next few minutes will determine their immediate future. Some were confident. Some were quietly nervous. All of them were completely unprepared for what they were about to hear. Ibata began by addressing the team with his characteristic calm and measured tone. He spoke about the importance of the Venezuela match, about the need for complete commitment from every player in the squad, and about the difficult decisions that managing a team at this level inevitably requires. And then he began reading the lineup. And with each name called, and each name conspicuously not called, the atmosphere in that room transformed from focused anticipation into something far more raw and complicated. The first omission sent an immediate ripple through the room. Then the second. And by the time the third key player's name failed to appear in the starting lineup, the shock inside that room had become something almost physical, a collective disbelief that hung in the air like a storm cloud that nobody had seen coming. Kensuke Kondo, the 4-time on-base percentage champion and one of the most technically gifted hitters in all of Japanese baseball, was not in the starting lineup. This decision alone would have been enough to generate enormous controversy and discussion. Kondo is not just a talented player. He is a symbol of everything that Japanese baseball stands for. His discipline at the plate, his ability to work counts and find gaps, and his extraordinary consistency over a long and decorated career make him exactly the kind of player you want in your lineup when the stakes are at their absolute highest. The second omission was equally stunning. A player who had been considered a certainty for the Venezuela lineup based on his performances earlier in the tournament was nowhere to be found in Ibata's starting 9. His exclusion raised immediate and serious questions about what had happened behind the scenes, whether injury, form concerns, or something more personal had influenced Ibata's thinking in ways that had not been communicated to the wider group. The third player left out of the lineup completed a trio of absences so significant that even the most experienced observers of Japanese baseball struggled to understand the tactical logic being applied. Together, these 3 omissions represented a dramatic and fundamental reshaping of everything that Samurai Japan's offensive approach had been built around throughout the tournament. Manager Ibata offered brief explanations for each decision, speaking with the careful and deliberate language of a man who had thought deeply about every word he was about to say. He spoke about tactical flexibility, about the specific challenges that Venezuela's pitching presence, and about his belief that the players he had selected gave Samurai Japan the best possible chance of winning this particular game against this particular opponent. But for the three players sitting in that room and hearing their names absent from the lineup, tactical explanations offered very little comfort. Of the three players left out of the starting lineup, it was Kensuke Kondo whose reaction became the defining image of this entire extraordinary episode. And it is an image that everyone who witnessed it says they will never forget for as long as they live. When Ibata finished reading the lineup and Kondo had processed the full reality that his name was not among the starters for the Venezuela match, something broke inside him. The walls of professional composure and mental discipline that every elite athlete builds over years of training and competition simply could not contain what he was feeling in that moment. Kondo burst into tears. But this was not the quiet, dignified kind of emotion that athletes sometimes display in particularly meaningful moments. This was raw, overwhelming, uncontrollable grief, the kind that comes from a place so deep and so personal that nothing in the world can hold it back. Teammates sat in stunned silence watching one of the most respected figures in Japanese baseball completely shattered by the weight of what he had just heard. And then, in a moment so visceral and so emotionally powerful that those who saw it could barely believe it was real, Kondo reached down and tore his uniform. The sound of the fabric tearing cut through the silence of that room like nothing else could have. It was not a calculated gesture. It was not a performance designed to send a message. It was the instinctive physical expression of a man whose heart had just been broken by a decision he could not understand, could not accept, and could not process in any other way. Teammates immediately moved to Kondo's side. Senior players wrapped arms around him. Coaches stood with expressions of genuine pain at witnessing the distress of a man who has given everything to Japanese baseball and who deserved, in this moment, every ounce of compassion his teammates could offer. Kondo's breakdown speaks to something far deeper than simple disappointment about a lineup decision. It speaks to the enormous personal investment that these players make when they pull on the Samurai Japan uniform. It speaks to what representing your country at the highest level means to a professional athlete who has dedicated his life to reaching this stage. And it speaks to the particular cruelty of being left out at precisely the moment you have spent your entire career working toward. Manager Ibata watched Kondo's breakdown with visible emotion of his own. Those present describe a manager who was clearly affected by what he was witnessing, a man who understood the human cost of the decisions he had made and who carried that weight with full awareness of its significance. While the scenes involving Kondo were unfolding inside the team room, Shohei Ohtani had stepped away from the group. Those close to him knew immediately that something was happening, that Otani was processing the lineup announcement in his own way and that his reaction, when it came, would carry enormous significance for everything that followed. What nobody expected was the phone call. Otani called manager Ibata directly, not through an intermediary, not through the coaching staff, directly, personally, and with an urgency that made clear this was not a conversation that could wait or be routed through official channels. When Ibata answered, Otani spoke with a directness and emotional intensity that those familiar with the usually composed superstar describe as genuinely startling. Otani is not a player who makes direct challenges to managerial authority. He is not a player who puts his personal preferences above the collective decisions of the coaching staff. His entire career has been defined by a combination of extraordinary individual talent and an equally extraordinary commitment to team-first values. But what he said to Ibata on that phone call crossed into territory that redefined the entire dynamic between Japan's greatest player and his national team manager. I can't accept this. The words landed with the force of everything Otani's extraordinary reputation gives them. This was not just a star player expressing frustration. This was the most important and influential figure in Japanese baseball history drawing a line in the clearest possible terms and telling his manager that the decisions just announced were ones he was not prepared to simply accept and move past. Sources close to both men described the phone call as lengthy, intense, and deeply significant. Otani did not simply state his disagreement and hang up. He engaged in a genuine and searching conversation with Ibata about the reasoning behind the lineup decisions, about the impact on team morale and unity, and about what he believed Samurai Japan needed from its manager in this critical moment. Ibata, to his credit, listened. He did not dismiss Otani's concerns. He did not retreat behind the authority of his position or remind his star player of the boundaries between player input and managerial decision-making. Instead, those who have been briefed on the conversation describe an exchange between two men who both care deeply about Samurai Japan's success and who are grappling honestly with a genuinely difficult situation. Whether that conversation ultimately changes anything about the lineup remains to be seen. But the fact that it happened, that Otani felt strongly enough to make that call and that Ibata engaged with it seriously, tells us everything about the extraordinary pressure and emotion swirling through the Samurai Japan camp right now. Despite the drama and controversy surrounding the three omissions, manager Ibata has confirmed his batting order for the Venezuela match, and the players he has selected are preparing with the intensity and focus that this occasion demands. Shohei Ohtani will once again lead off, continuing in the role that has defined Samurai Japan's offensive approach throughout the tournament. His presence at the top of the order remains non-negotiable regardless of the controversy surrounding other lineup decisions. With his extraordinary combination of on-base ability, speed, and devastating power, Otani as leadoff gives Japan the most dangerous possible start to every inning. Seiya Suzuki will bat second, providing the kind of experienced, technically sound hitting that complements Otani's explosive presence at the top of the order perfectly. Suzuki's MLB experience and his ability to perform under pressure make him exactly the right player to bat behind Otani when the stakes are this high. The middle of the order has been configured to maximize power and run production against Venezuela's pitching staff. Ibata has clearly prioritized the ability to drive runs home in big moments, selecting hitters whose strength and situational awareness give Samurai Japan the best chance of converting scoring opportunities into actual runs on the board. The lower portion of the batting order reflects Ibata's commitment to maintaining offensive pressure throughout the entire lineup rather than concentrating all of Japan's dangerous hitters at the top. Every position in this batting order has been chosen with specific tactical purpose, and the players selected know exactly what is expected of them. The events of this morning have placed Samurai Japan in a position that no team wants to be in hours before a critical match. Emotionally drained, internally divided, and carrying the weight of controversy and conflict into a game that demands absolute focus and unity. And yet, throughout the history of sport, some of the greatest performances have come from teams that faced exactly this kind of adversity. There is something about a shared crisis, about the experience of being tested to the absolute limit together, that can forge a bond between players stronger than anything built during calm and comfortable times. Manager Ibata clearly believes his decisions are the right ones for this moment. Kondo's heartbreaking reaction and Otani's direct challenge have tested his resolve, but those close to him describe a manager who remains utterly convinced that the lineup he has chosen gives Samurai Japan the best possible chance of defeating Venezuela and advancing deeper into this tournament. Otani, whatever his personal feelings about the decisions that have been made, will walk onto that field and give everything he has. That is simply who he is. That is the standard he holds himself to regardless of circumstances. And when Otani is fully committed and fully motivated, Venezuela and every other team in this tournament had better be ready. Kondo's torn uniform now hangs in the Samurai Japan locker room as a powerful and painful symbol of what this team has been through today. It is a reminder of the human cost of the decisions that come with managing at the highest level. And it is a reminder of just how much every single player on this roster cares about what they are fighting for. Japan is watching. The world is watching. And in a few hours, we will find out exactly what Samurai Japan is made of. Thank you for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree with Ibata's lineup decisions? Or do you think leaving out 3 key players is a mistake that could cost Japan everything? Subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on every development as the 2026 World Baseball Classic reaches its most dramatic and unforgettable moments yet.